to see you, my friend.
Good to be back with you.
Hey, congratulations on the success of your show. It's been it's very awesome to see, and it's been really awesome to hear from so many people about it that know that I'm really fascinated by the subject. And the reviews have all been super positive from my friends, so I'm really excited about it.
Well, thank you for appearing on Ancient Apocalypse as well.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's a subject to me that is so unbelievably fascinating and so bizarre that it's controversial. I do not understand. I mean, we were just talking about this, and I said, let's stop talking when we're getting coffee.
Yeah.
It's, to me, it seems like there's things that are concrete, right? We know when Genghis Khan lived.
Yeah.
We know when they built the 16th chapel. We know a lot about the Parthenon and the Acropolis. Mm-hmm. We know about 2,000 years ago. We know when you start going way, 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 way back, things get real sketchy. And to not admit that seems so crazy. When they find things, when they're making apartment buildings sometimes, they're digging into the ground, they go, oh, hold on a second, what is this? Doesn't it happen in Mexico City all the time?
Yeah, it does. And actually, that's how a lot of archaeology happens. Somebody's building a road or building apartment buildings or building a dam, and they call in archaeologists to see if there's any interesting archaeology there. And this is part of the problem I have with archaeology as a discipline. It likes to think of itself as scientific, but what I think it's primarily doing, and it is weird, is trying to control the narrative about the past.
Do you think that's because the people that are in control of archaeology, the academics, the professors, these people have written books on these things, have lectured on these things, and they've been very specific about timelines and dates?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated it's a complicated mixture of things. First of all, because archaeology is so desperate to be seen as a science, it tries as hard as possible to distance itself from any ideas that might be seen as woo-woo. Anything out on the edge, archaeology doesn't want to associate itself with. And then it takes the next step and really seeks to attack out on the edge ideas. Now, I don't know why the possibility of a lost civilization during the Ice Age should be an out on the edge idea. We've had lost civilizations before. The Indus Valley civilization today in Pakistan wasn't known about until the 1920s. It was found by accident. And, every turn of the archaeologist's spade can reveal new information. But the reaction to my proposal that we've forgotten an episode in the human story, it's always been hostile since I published Fingerprints of the Gods in 1995. But with Ancient Apocalypse, much bigger platform reaching a much wider audience, the reaction was just hysterical. And it went on for a very long time. And it appeared to me, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I don't think archaeologists are involved in a conspiracy. I think the people who are attacking me genuinely believe in what they're saying, and they genuinely think I'm harmful. But that's like calling it the most dangerous show on Netflix.
How did they come up with that? How is it harmful to be speculating about ancient structures? It's interesting.
Yeah. That's what I don't get.
The other thing is the racist angle. Like, we're talking about the exact same people.
Yeah.
We're just talking about an older time. It doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
In fact, it kind of points to the superiority of the Egyptian race.
Absolutely.
I mean, whatever they did, however they did it, is unbelievably extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I think pointing that out is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're discovering and what you're showing on that show is that there are a lot of mysteries when it comes to the history of human beings, and we should embrace those mysteries because there's concrete, irrefutable evidence, especially in terms of like Göbekli Tepe and some of the other structures. I mean, this is wild stuff.
Yeah.
The idea that human beings had an advanced civilization 10,000, 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, what happened? That's what's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
And that's why it's Ancient Apocalypse, because we know that there was a global cataclysm, a slow one, 1,200 years long, between 12,800 and 11,600 years ago, called the Younger Dryas. There's still arguments about what caused it, but the fact that it was cataclysmic is not really disputed. The accusations that were put against me and the show the accusations included the words racist white supremacist, misogynist, and anti-Semitic.
They give you the full hand. They didn't even give you one card.
The show
off.
doesn't touch on any of these issues. Race is not mentioned in the show. So what the archaeologists were doing there, they were going back to Fingerprints of the Gods that I wrote in 1995, in which I reported indigenous traditions about the appearance of bearded foreigners bringing knowledge after a cataclysm to the shattered survivors of that cataclysm. And in some cases, in those traditions, those knowledge bringers are described as white-skinned. And that is why the show was accused of racism, because archaeology has since taken the view that all of those stories were made up by the Spanish. And that seems to me completely ridiculous. Both in Mexico and in Peru and Bolivia, we have traditions. We have them, Viracocha, we have Quetzalcoatl, we have Bochica. This is a pan-American myth. And actually, I think it's racist of archaeology to imagine that the magic powers of the Spaniards could impose a myth upon indigenous peoples all over the Americas, that they'd just be so stupid that they would fall for this story told by the Spaniards. Of course, these are indigenous myths and traditions. And I was reporting them in that book, and I stand by them. And it turns out that there's actually a huge argument within academia about this, and my critics were just giving one side of that argument.
And what is the rest of the argument? What is the other side of it?
Well, the other side of the argument that it's inconceivable that the Spaniards made up these stories. These stories were reported to the first Spanish visitors in Mexico and in Peru. They were reported to them by indigenous peoples as indigenous myths. And the fact that they're right spread across the Americas makes it very unlikely. I mean, if it was one story, but if it's a dozen stories and they're told over a huge geographical region, the notion that this is a Spanish conspiracy, it's an ultimate conspiracy theory. I don't think we should take away these traditions from the indigenous people who reported them. But it gave a very useful handle for people to attack this series on.
So the theory is that it was an uneven destruction, right? And that some places fared better than other places in terms of the Younger Dryas impact theory, right?
Yeah.
And that those people might have reclaimed a modicum of civilization.
Yeah, that's the idea. And by the way, on that point, I have never, in anything that I've written or anything that I've broadcast, ever myself suggested that white races were involved. Actually, it would be quite stupid to do so, because if you look at Europe during the Ice Age, and I'm talking about a lost civilization of the Ice Age,